This house.
At Alpha. Alpha.
Okay. Still don't see your body. I don't see it.
It might. I wonder if it automatically. I guess. Fuck. Take your chance position. Oh, there's some. God damn it.
Hey my fellow friend sets and Happy New Year! Here's my review for Contractors, developed and published by Caveman Studio. And while this is currently available on PCVR, this review will be focused on the Oculus Quest version. Contractors is available now for an estimated price of $20. Of course, that depends on your region. Contractors is a military-based shooter that is heavily focused on online multiplayer content, with a look, speed, and feel that looks to bring contractors like gunplay to VR. Stick with me while I put it through its paces and see if it delivers. As always, guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It not only helps out the channel, but VR gaming as a whole. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, you guys know the deal, hit that bell icon. I've also got a new VR podcast on the channel and on all major podcast platforms. We call it Virtual Boys, and every episode, myself and Ryan from the VR Grid take a deep dive into something we feel is important in the VR space. So, please guys, check that out too. Let's jump in here with a look at graphics. Contractors on the Quest will no doubt be compared to the also recently released Onward, and rightfully so, as they share much of the same visual style, locations, and weaponry. I know many of you felt that Onward was visually a disappointment on the Quest and Quest 2, and while I appreciated the impossible task the devs had at bringing Onward's huge maps to the Quest, I do understand why some would feel it was visually a letdown. Besides dealing with the sheer scale of the game, Onward also made the visual choice to attempt to retain most of the texture details in the world. Unfortunately, the Quest and Quest 2 both lacked the horsepower to render all of it sharp enough, and suffered from muddy textures and frequent pop-in. Wisely, Contractors seems to take a slightly different approach here on the Quest, choosing to really pull back the texture detail in certain areas while still retaining the look and feel of the PC version. The result is a game that, while not visually stunning, comes off super clean and polished, making sure you see what you need to, while still managing to feel like a game grounded in reality. This balancing act can also be seen on the lighting side of things, as mostly everything is simply baked into the textures. And while this does make for a slightly flat and lifeless game due to the lack of any dynamic lighting or shadow effects, it also ensures the game runs well while retaining a sense of reality. Pop-in can still be seen here and there throughout though, with some maps faring better than others, but as a whole, it works incredibly well, even when looking at it through high-powered scopes. Now, texture-wise, yes, the game does take a hit here, and in some cases, really badly. But honestly, it still really works, as the dev team has wisely used a fixed foveated rendering system that's not too intrusive, as well as cherry-picking what world textures to prioritize, while also making character and gun models a priority. To be fair, even on the PC, Contractors was never a visual spectacle, so the character models here on the Quest are only okay. But the guns of the stars here in Contractors on Quest brings this part of the PC version over almost perfectly, with gun models that look and perform exactly as they should. That being said, muzzle flashes, smoke effects, flashbangs, and explosions are certainly dialed down here, with the smoke being laughable at times, but again, it all works pretty well regardless, and never once took away from the Contractors experience. Each of the 11 maps themselves offer up a nice variety of locales and sizes, ranging from smaller indoor, almost arena-style maps to wide-open maps that nicely combine outside and inside arenas, along with some nice elevation. The variety here makes every map feel very unique from the next, and definitely helped in keeping things from getting stale. However, it should be noted that it would appear the custom maps in the PC version are absent here, which is really unfortunate considering the quality and diversity found there. Over on the PC version, you could find some great custom-made maps, including a lot of famous Call of Duty maps. So hopefully Contractors like Onward is able to patch that back in after giving creators the tools to optimize their maps for the lower-powered hardware. Regardless though, Contractors for me seems to have found a great middle ground here on the Quest, retaining the speed, feel, and look of the PC versions with some smart design choices. And honestly, after a few rounds, I often wasn't even paying attention to the visuals, I was just in the game. Sound is up next. Honestly, when it comes to competitive gun games, I need enough detail and positional audio to know where I'm being shot from, and enough detail and volume in the guns to pucker up my butthole. I also couldn't care less about the music or voice work, as I shouldn't be able to hear it over my gunfire anyways. And it would appear that Caveman Studio feels much the same, as music and voice just aren't a thing here. And as it should be, they instead went to work on gun sounds and positional audio. The results are weapons that rank among some of the best in the VR scene, with a level of authenticity that made the gun nerd in me smile. As I often say, guns could maybe be a little beefier in the sound mix, but that really is a minor complaint here. As for the work done on player movement and enemy gunfire as it relates to target acquisition, I would say it's mostly there. Footstep sounds could be a little more nuanced, as it often sounded like a tap dance competition when I was in a building, but I was never confused on where I was being shot from or where enemies were advancing from, if loud enough, of course. Bringing me to the wonderfully executed spatial audio that made teammates standing next to me really sound like they were next to me in that space. Distance from players meant I had to yell to be heard, or instead rely on my shoulder-mounted radio to communicate with my team, making the whole tactical aspect so immersive. However, this excellent use of spatial audio works both ways, and on many occasions I managed to get the drop on some overly chatty friends who forgot they weren't playing Call of Duty and were giving away their position the whole time. Often meaning teams attempting a stealthy advance may have to actually start using hand signs. The beauty of VR. Now let's talk gameplay. Solely having a PSVR headset for more than 3 years, Firewall Zero Hour had the market to themselves. Coming over to the PC changed all that for me, with a wide selection of decent two-handed shooters, but on the standalone Quest, the situation was even more stark than on the PSVR, with really only a few betas available on SideQuest. Well, the past 4 months have seen that change significantly, with the introduction of Solaris, Population 1, Onward, and now Contractors. Admittedly, on the PCVR side of things, Contractors was my favorite military shooter, as I felt Pavlov was a little too run and gun for me, and I didn't always have the patience for Onward or its more hardcore player base. So if Pavlov is Call of Duty and Onward is Insurgency with a splash of Rainbow Six, then Contractors is most certainly the Counterstrike of VR, bringing solid and realistic gunplay that moves at a quick but realistic pace, yet remains accessible enough for anyone to jump in. As primarily an online competitive shooter, player bases are divided into casual and competitive, allowing players to find like-minded individuals to shoot alongside. A wide selection of modes are available, offering up 10-player matches that cover such staples as free-for-all, TDM, Conquest, Control, Gun Game, and Attack and Defend. Online servers are great, and matchmaking is often fast, with the introduction of the Quest version bringing in a lot of new players and breathing new life into this game. Now, for those who prefer to play solo, you will find a selection of basic objective-based missions that can be either run completely solo or co-op with up to 4 friends. Missions are nothing special though, as they are the usual escort, defend, VIP, or control objectives you've seen 100 times before, and the AI is not amazing. They'll pull off a fancy roll or two, but they aren't very smart and will often kill you with pure numbers rather than skill. That being said, I'm a sucker for terrorist hunt style missions in shooters, and still had a blast bringing a buddy along for the slaughter. Regardless, whether you are flying solo or jumping into some online competition, the game plays great, and for me finds a perfect balance between speed and being tactical, with running being affected by your loadout weight and only allowing you to sprint when your gun is lowered or holstered. Time to kill is quick, but not one shot you're dead quick, unless of course you get popped in your brain bag. Map design, like I said, is varied and offers up a nice mix of small to medium maps, along with some larger maps that open up some opportunities for snipers. That being said, they never tread into Onward's vast map sizes, and instead keep things tight enough so that with 10 players, you won't be looking too long for some action. Map designs themselves are actually pretty decent, if not particularly spectacular, with each having its own flavor and memorable parts. Some do certainly lend themselves better to certain modes, but for the most part they function quite nicely across most modes. One area, however, where Contractors really does come up a bit short and feels a little underdeveloped is its complete lack of any progression or leveling system. As such, all weapons and accessories are open from the start, leaving nothing to really work towards. And while this may appeal to the sim crowd, and admittedly I do love the fact that a specific weapon isn't artificially nerfed simply so it can be leveled up, it does mean the game has to get by on its gameplay alone to keep players engaged. As for the weapon selection and customizability specifically, you won't find any pre-configured classes. Instead, you will have 3 custom loadouts to spec out based on your wallet points to allocate. Weapon selections across the rifle, carbine, SMG, shotgun, rifle, and handgun classes is pretty decent and is being added to over time, with the most recent addition being a free World War II add-on, which is just awesome. That being said, there are some key weapons missing in action, and the absence of any LMG class is noticed. Unfortunately, where Contractors does seem to lack is in the gun customization side of things, with weapons simply lacking much in the way of attachment variety beyond a few grip scope options and the ability to add a suppressor. In this regard, Onward puts Contractors to shame with a multitude of grip, barrel, and scope options, including tripods, laser sights, flashlights, as well as under-barrel attachments such as a grenade launcher or a master key. As such, I do hope to see these added in as the game continues to grow, as it would open up a wealth of combat options. Functionality aside, those looking to customize their look will also be disappointed here, as there's currently no way to personalize your character or weapons. These negatives aside, though, what weapons and attachments there are all play well and seem to have been well balanced when compared to each other. Reload mechanics are decent as well and certainly lean towards the sim side of things, but never reach the levels of authenticity seen in Onward or Gun Club, something I would have enjoyed but admittedly does make for a less severe learning curve for newcomers. Tracking here in Contractors is excellent and offers up some of the lowest amount of occlusion I have seen in a two-handed shooter using inside-out tracking. Those with mobility issues or VR sickness should approach this with caution, for while it does offer up some comfort options like blinders or the ability to turn the full body off, you are required to crouch for real, and if you drop your gun, you will be picking it up off the floor. In addition, the gameplay is fairly quick by design, including a jump function, so keep this in mind when considering this title. And finally, that brings us to fun factor in my final review. Despite its visual downgrade on the Quest and some missing features, Contractors is an awesome shooter that is currently in constant rotation for my VR shooter needs, along with Population 1. Contractors is accessible but grounded, managing to lean into the sim side of things without coming off too intimidating for those who just want to have fun in something a little more real world. It's definitely not perfect, and the Quest version certainly takes a visual hit, but once I was in and running around with a group of friends, it just worked. As you guys know, I hate numbered review scores and instead rate games on a basis of buy it, burn it, or wait on it. For $20, if you like shooters, this is an absolute no-brainer, as you will have a standalone version of one of the best shooters currently available on the PC. And for those with a PSVR as well, this is the game Alvo wishes it was. Now, of course, this is heavily a multiplayer title, so for those who prefer to play solo, just know going in that the single-player content is limited and often feels more like training with crash test dummies than an actual single-player campaign. However, if you can get at least one other friend to jump in and co-op, I guarantee you will still have a blast. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing, guys. And as always, I'll catch you on my next video.